Cool. Hi, my name is Ethan. You can call me Mr. Sawyer if that's more comfortable. I had a different talk prepared today. I had this epic, not even like PowerPoint, like a Prezi. Do you guys know what Prezi is? It's like this really awesome, PowerPoint thing, but you can zoom in and out on it. Check this out. I was gonna start with this really awesome security alert. No, I'm kidding. I was going to start with I was going to start with this inspiring quote from Joseph Campbell, and then I was going to fail at clicking on my PowerPoint. I'm sure there's some kind of life lesson here. And then I was going to talk about this book that he wrote. And then I was going to talk about another security alert. And then, this is kind of amazing. And then, Dr. Lee, what do you think? Okay, I apologize. Okay. Okay, forget it. Here we go. No PowerPoint. So it was going to be great, I promise. There was going to be 108 slides, and I was going to go through all of them. Boom, boom, boom. And I was going to talk about extracurricular activities and why it's important to follow your bliss. And I was going to talk, what else was I going to talk about? I was going to talk about the application and give you advice on that. And really, it all came back to this point: follow your bliss. That was kind of the essence of it. It's something that guy said. And 2 nights ago, I was thinking about this, and I was like, God, is that really the essence? Is that, they've heard this before. They've heard people say to them, follow your bliss, follow your passion. It feels kind of trite. It feels kind of, so what more can I give them? So I went for a long walk. This is true. This is 48 hours ago. I went for this long walk, and I started thinking about my own life, and I started thinking about, am I really qualified to come up before a group of 3,000 people and say, follow your bliss? Am I really following my bliss? You know, I started to go back through my life and think, have I followed my bliss at each point in my life? Have I truly done that? And at first I thought, no. There are times when I haven't followed my bliss. And then I thought of a time when I did, and then I thought of another time when I did, and I started to think there are certain times in my life when I followed my bliss. And it turned out horribly. It was kind of a disaster. And I thought, that might be useful. At this point, I would click on the next slide. That might be useful. And so I rewrote my talk. And rather than have my talk be, do what you are, the new title of my talk is, Don't Do What You Are: The Dangers in Following Your Bliss. Here are 4 reasons why you should not follow your bliss. Ready? So, I'm going to have to use my notes here because this is new. So basketball was my passion growing up. Basketball was what I loved more than anything. I loved basketball so much, in order to relax, I would go out on the basketball court where there was, even if there was no rim, they had the rims pushed up, I would just dribble the basketball. Dribble, dribble, dribble. That's it, just to practice dribbling. I would put headphones on and just go away. I would go with my dad, we would go play basketball. I played basketball in middle school when we lived overseas. We came back, 9th grade I played basketball, 10th grade I was captain of the JV team. And, okay, I was 5'9" at the time, and yeah, I was white. But I'll be honest, I wanted to play in the NBA. Go ahead, you can laugh. I wanted to play in the NBA. That was my dream. That was what I was going to do. I watched North Carolina basketball. That was it. So in 11th grade, I switched from a private school to a public school, Southwest Miami High, and I started getting involved in acting. And I really loved it. I auditioned for this play called Life After Elvis, and I got the lead role playing an Elvis impersonator. And so I had this big silver jumpsuit with this giant hair, and it was actually kind of fun, so I really liked it. So I found out that year, my junior year, the basketball tryouts were going to happen at the same time as the final dress rehearsal for the play. Okay? So I had to choose at that moment. I had to decide, was I going to go to the final practice of the play, or was I going to go to tryouts? Little did I know this would be an important decision later. But I decided, okay, I'm going to try and do both. I'm going to go to my dress rehearsal first, and then afterwards I'm going to go and I'm going to see if I can make it to tryouts. So I went to dress rehearsal. We rehearsed the play. It went okay. I needed to go to tryouts, and I thought, this will help me. I will grab my costume and my wig, and I will run to tryouts to show them this is where I was. So I literally ran across the campus. I got to the court. I saw the guys were like finishing practice, and I was like, oh no. I showed up to the coach, and I said, hey, I'd like to try out. I was at play practice, and I showed him my costume, and he said, sorry, dude, we made cuts. We're done. And he turned around and like walked away. And I was like, oh. So I walked back to the theater, and I remember this moment. There's like this corridor. I'll drop my wig for a second. There was this corridor I was walking down, and I was walking away from the gym, and I was walking toward the theater. And I stopped in the middle of the thing, like dramatically, and I was like, this is a sign. It was one of those moments where you pause and you're like, yeah, I'm doing this. And I still have my costume in my hand. And I was like, I'm leaving basketball to go toward theater. And it felt epic. And I thought, in 12 years, I will tell 3,000 people this story. No, I'm just kidding. I thought this means something. So it did actually mean something, because as a result of that, I started to make a lot more decisions following theater. I decided to audition for more plays. I got more roles. I ended up entering some competitions. I entered a monologue competition and won for our area. I won a competition for the best young playwright in the county. I even won a competition that won me a free trip to New York City, my first time to New York, performing a Shakespeare monologue on a stage on Broadway, the National Shakespeare Monologue Competition. Suddenly, all these things started happening for me with theater. 2 weeks after this trip to New York, I had this, 2 weeks after the trip to New York, I had my interview for Northwestern. And I was meeting with this interviewer, and she was like, it's fine, it doesn't even matter. I was meeting with this interviewer, and she said, so tell me about yourself. And I started to tell her about different things about who I was. And she's like, oh, you like theater? And she's like, yeah. So I started telling her about all this theater stuff. And she goes, you know Northwestern is the #1 theater school, right? And I was like, oh. She said, you should apply for theater. I said, really? She's like, yeah, you would be perfect. You would love it at Northwestern. It would be perfect for you. So guess what happened? I applied to Northwestern. I was already applying to Northwestern. I got in. She said it would be perfect for me. It was. I did tons of theater there. Little did I know that moment, that epic moment when I was walking away from that gym toward the theater, would be the moment that led to me finding the college that was perfect for me. So here's the first lesson about why you should never follow your bliss. Following your bliss can ruin your chances at a career in the NBA. It ruined mine. That's reason number one. Reason number two. So after my sophomore year in college, I worked at Red Lobster. You guys know Red Lobster? Seafood differently. What's the best thing about Red Lobster? Anybody? What's the best food at Red Lobster? Lobster? No. The biscuits, that's right. Who knows about the Cheddar Bay biscuits? I hear some people clapping up there. The Cheddar Bay biscuits at Red Lobster is the best part of this job. So I worked this epic job at Red Lobster, and it's hard. Waiting tables at Red Lobster is harder than any other place because not only do you have to wait the tables, you have to make the salads. This is what you don't know about your poor waiters at Red Lobster. They're in the back, they're making the salads, they're fixing your drinks, they'll bring your drinks, they'll come and go get the salads, then they have to bring the biscuits, then they have to go and they have to bring the appetizers out. Would you like more to drink? Would you like more biscuits? Because everybody eats tons of biscuits. So we're going back and forth. Then we not only when we bring the entrees, and then we have to bring desserts. And this is with 6 tables, so you got to keep them all in your mind. So I'm waiting tables at this job, and it's hard. It's hard work, but I needed the money. My family didn't come from money. We weren't a wealthy family, so I needed to work to make money. So I'm working at this job, eating Cheddar Bay biscuits, like in the back, when I can. And I get a phone call from my friend. And his name is EC, and he's shooting a movie, an independent film that he'd written. And he said, hey, we're working on this film. I've been talking to the producer, and we'd like you to be in it. And I said, wow, that's really cool. And he said, yeah, we want you to play the lead. And I was like, what? playing the lead in this movie. He's like, yeah, you could come up and stay at my place. And by the way, his dad, have you guys ever heard of Perfumania? I don't know if you've heard of this. They've got outlets all over the country. Anyway, his dad owns Perfumania. He lives in this epic palace. So he's like, you just stay with me. And usually when people say stay with me, it means like crash on the couch. I was going to have my own room. He's like, you'll be in the movie. It won't be a ton of pay, but, it should be fun. So I had to make a choice. I had to choose between working at Red Lobster, making salads, eating biscuits, making desserts, and going to be a movie star for a month. Tough decision, right? Can you guess what I chose? I chose to become a movie star for a month. And here's what happened. I went and lived in his house. We had the auditions. We had screen tests, with the other actors, beautiful, beautiful women. I'm married now, but beautiful women. We had we had a kiss on screen. I had this epic fight scene where I got to beat this guy up. He was messing with my sister. And then people who didn't really know me well were just like, "Oh, you're the lead, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the lead." They're like, "Wow, cool." So people were kind of mistaking me for a movie star. It was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced, but here's reason number 2 to never follow your bliss. Even though you might live like an awesome rock star movie star, you will ruin your chances at getting unlimited free Cheddar Bay biscuits at Red Lobster. Reason number 2 to not follow your bliss. Okay, third story. A year later, I was in my dorm at Northwestern. I'd come back from study abroad in London, which is the best idea ever. Study abroad if you can. And I was in my dorm room, and I was sitting there trying to mull over what I was going to do for the summer. My options were somewhat limited. The summer before, I'd worked at Red Lobster, and then, done this movie thing, and I didn't have another movie lined up, unfortunately. So I was like, well, I'll probably wait tables at Clark's, which is this little diner that was in Evanston, Northwestern. If not, maybe I'll get a job at Barnes & Noble. I'll make, $7 an hour. I'll do something. It'll be fine. It'll work out. I got an email that night, and I checked my email, and it was from the Office of Undergraduate Grants, money. There's an actual office at Northwestern that just gives away money. And they had sent me an email. They'd sent a bunch of people an email. But they were advertising, that at the end of that week on Friday, and this was on a Wednesday, there was the deadline for the undergraduate research grant. So I was thinking, okay, well, what does this mean? And I read it, and it said, undergraduate research is a $3,000 grant to study something in particular that you're interested in. It was kind of the gist of it. And I was like, $3,000? Wow. It's there's no way that somebody would just give me $3,000 without a well-thought-out plan, right? Right? But I started to think about it, and I was like, what would I like to study? What would I like to undergraduately research? And I thought, well, actually, let me think about this in a different way. Where would I like to go this summer? And then I thought, I'd love to go back to Spain. I used to live in Spain when I was young, and I thought, wow, it would be amazing to go to Spain and just travel. But I need to study something. Okay, what would I study? So I kind of was thinking about things that I liked, and I was like, I love poetry. Poetry is something that I love more than anything. Okay, Spanish poet. And I swear to you, I did this. I Googled Spanish poet, and up came Federico Garcia Lorca. I was like, all right. So I started to read about him a little bit, Federico Garcia Lorca. I was like, wow, this guy sounds pretty cool. All right, cool. So I started to write about this grant application, studying the life of Federico Garcia Lorca. I wrote about how I wanted to read all the works he'd ever written, and I wanted to read all the works about him. I was really ambitious at this point. I wanted to go and walk the land that he walked and breathe the air that he breathed. You see the segregation I'm doing here? So I wrote this. My aunt read it later, and she said it was the biggest pile of crap that she'd ever read. But guess what? They gave me a check for $3,000 to do this. So I still worked at Clark's that summer, and waiting tables, $2 tips. College students are the worst tippers. They give $2 tips always. So at the midway point of that summer, it was time for me to take the trip. I had to quit another job, another safe, secure employment, and I had to go, and I had to travel not only around Spain. I actually flew into London. We trained to Paris. We saw the Louvre. We saw the Eiffel Tower. We trained down into Biarritz, this town. We were going to go see the running of the bulls, but we're like, oh, it's kind of cool here. So we'll just stay on the coast of France for 3 days. And this is all on school money, by the way. And I probably shouldn't be talking about that. Anyway, we did that. Then I went down into Spain, went and saw the birthplace of Lorca. I went to this library that had been dedicated just to his works. I read his works. I marinated, and I actually did learn a ton about Lorca. I came back. I got interviewed by the school, by the quarterly newsletter. I was on the front page of their, the quarterly, newsletter that was talking about the successes of the undergraduate research program. It was an epic month and a half. But when I came back to Northwestern, I went back to Clark's and I said, hey, Maritza, who was my manager, can I have my job back? And what did she say? Sorry, we gave your job to someone else. So rule number 3, always remember this. Following your bliss can lead to temporary unemployment. I got a job the next week. I got 2 jobs actually. I got one job in the scene shop, which was awesome, building props and stuff. And then the second job I got was at this thrift store, working with these really cool 2 old ladies. It was great. But I had that momentary sort of uncertainty, So know this, following your bliss can lead to uncertainty. It can make you feel a little uncomfortable. All right, lesson 4, final story. So I was living in New York after I graduated, and I was working a 9-to-5 job, making $25,000 a year. I was working for Fat Farm and J-Lo, Russell Simmons. I was making purchase orders. I was sitting behind a computer all day and typing, and I was a cog in a machine, basically. So I'm working this job, and I also had a really good housing in Harlem. Harlem, it's hard to find good, cheap housing in New York, but I had it. It's $425 a month, living in a beautiful, I have a picture of, oh, there it is. Yeah, thank you. That's it. That was my beautiful apartment. This is my apartment in New York. Go to the next slide, Dr. Lee. This was my room right here. So I was set, Life is good, right? And then I get another one of those epic phone calls, those phone calls that change your life. It was from my best friend, Ryan. Is he here? There he is. So Ryan calls me, and he says, guess what? I'm applying to USC for screenwriting. Now, Ryan and I had both kind of fallen in love with screenwriting. We'd taken this, I saw him, thank you. We'd taken these screenwriting classes, and we were like, this is it. This is what we should do. We would stay up late working on screenplays. And I'd gone to New York to work this job creating purchase orders. But Ryan said, I want to go to grad school. I want to go to USC. And I said, wow, that's the best one. What other schools are you applying to? And he's like, no, I think I'm just going to apply to this one. I was like, wow, ballsy. Cool. So if you don't get in, he's like, I'll do something else, I was like, wow. So it's kind of inspiring. I was like, you know what? I'll tell you what. I was in New York doing this job. I was like, if you get into USC, I'll move to LA with you. So let's get a couple things straight. I was working this awesome job, making $12 an hour. I had affordable housing in New York. I was set, right? And here I was getting ready to throw everything away on a dream. This was my mistake, right? So what happened? I get this phone call from Ryan a few months later. I still remember the day. It's like a series of epic phone calls that I got. So I got this call from him, and he said, I heard from USC. And I was like, hold on, let me go outside. So I go outside, and I'm like, yeah? And he's like, I got in, and I'm like, yes. And I'm jumping up and down. I'm like, we're moving to LA. So we did. I packed up all my stuff, sold what I didn't need. We packed up all of his stuff in a blue Toyota Corolla. And I'm getting a little choked up right now. we put all the stuff in his car, and we drove out to LA and to pursue our dream. We got a cheap apartment through a friend. I took a different job. We both took a different job at this SAT company called Elite, which I got paid better at. Plus, it was 10 times more fulfilling. Ryan went on to graduate from USC. He has done a lot. Now he's a writer on Grey's Anatomy, which he'll talk about later. And best of all, Will you, Dr. Lee? Next one. I met this girl, who is the love of my life, who I met 7 years ago. We dated for 7 years, and we just got married 2 months ago. But look what I had to sacrifice, Dr. Lee, if you would. Cheap housing. So, fourth rule, following your bliss can cause you to give up cheap housing. Here's my conclusion. I can hear what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, wait, Ethan, didn't following your bliss lead you to get into the #1 college in your field, allow you to live like a movie star for a month, travel Europe like a rock star, on school money, plus meet the woman of your dreams? Yes, true. But think about what I had to sacrifice. Dreams of playing in the NBA, gone. Unlimited free Cheddar Bay biscuits, gone. Secure employment, a roof over my head, gone. A beautiful apartment in New York City, which you've already seen, gone. So as you can see, following your bliss is a terrible idea. None of you should do it. Joseph Campbell, the old white guy that was on the picture earlier, said this. He said, follow your bliss and the universe will open doors for you where there were only walls. I don't know. I'm really skeptical. Following your bliss, yes, can lead to college acceptance, people mistaking for and treating you like a movie star, adventures in foreign countries, and maybe, just maybe, meeting the person of your dreams. So do not, my friends, whatever you do, follow your bliss. Because it just might make you into a different person. And who knows who that person might be. Better to play it safe. Thank you.